There are motorcycle clubs, and then there are legends that changed the criminal underworld forever. For more than 7 decades, 5 outlaw motorcycle clubs have dominated headlines, survived relentless police crackdowns, expanded across continents, and built reputations feared by rivals and law enforcement alike. The Hells Angels, Bandidos, Mongols, Outlaws, and Pagans are far more than riding clubs. They have been linked to violent turf wars, international investigations, deadly feuds, and a brotherhood bound by strict loyalty and an uncompromising code. With hundreds of chapters operating around the world, these organizations have become symbols of power, rebellion, and controversy. But behind every patch lies a story of ambition, conflict, betrayal, and survival. How did these clubs rise from small local groups to global outlaw empires? Which wars shaped their history? What really happens behind closed clubhouse doors? And how much of their legend is fact and how much is myth? In this complete documentary, we uncover the origins, expansion, major conflicts, infamous crimes, leadership, rivalries, and lasting legacy of the 5 most powerful outlaw motorcycle clubs ever created. Chapter 1: Hells Angels, MC. The story of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club didn't begin with organized crime. It started in the years after World War II, when thousands of young American veterans returned home, looking for a place where they truly belonged. Southern California was changing fast, but for many former soldiers, fitting back into ordinary civilian life wasn't easy. Many felt disconnected from the new suburban lifestyle that was taking shape across America. They found freedom on powerful motorcycles and built a brotherhood based on loyalty, respect, and living by their own rules. On March 17, 1948, the first Hells Angels chapter was officially established in Fontana and San Bernardino, California. Its early members included former military veterans, factory workers, and young blue-collar men who rejected the idea of living a conventional life. Instead of following society's expectations, they created a close-knit club where riding together gave them purpose, identity, and a sense of belonging. The club entered a completely new chapter in 1957, when Ralph Hubert Sonny Barger Jr. founded the Oakland, California chapter. Barger had enlisted in the U.S. Army at just 16 by altering his birth certificate. After the military discovered his real age, he was honorably discharged. Even after leaving the Army, he believed Motorcycle Club they needed stronger organization and clear leadership. That opportunity came in 1958, when Otto Fiedli, founder of the original San Bernardino chapter, was sent to prison. At only 20 years old, Sonny Barger stepped in to unite the scattered Hells Angels chapters. He transformed the club from a loose collection of local groups into a more organized national brotherhood. It doesn't mean that you should make it and make it. Barger moved the club's mother chapter to Oakland, created national bylaws, and introduced consistent rules covering membership, territory, and internal discipline. Those changes shaped the Hells Angels into the organization the world would come to recognize. During the 1960s, the Hells Angels evolved during the little-known California Motorcycle Club into one of the most recognizable outlaw biker groups in America. Much of that attention came from newspapers, television, and especially author Self Thompson, whose 1967 book, Hells Angels: The Strange and Terrible Saga of the Outlaw Motorcycle Gangs, introduced the club to a worldwide audience. Thompson described Sonny Barger as the club's maximum leader and portrayed the Hells Angels as a brotherhood that lived completely outside mainstream society and its rules. Around the same time, the media helped popularize the club's connection to the 1% image. The phrase came from a widely repeated claim that the American Motorcyclist Association once said that 99% of motorcyclists obeyed the law, leaving the remaining 1% outside it. Whether the statement was officially made or not, the Hells Angels embraced the label and it became one of the most recognized symbols of outlaw biker culture. The club's biggest moment in the public spotlight came on December 6, 1969, during the Altamont Free Concert in California. Organizers, along with representatives of the Rolling Stones, hired Hells Angels members to provide informal stage security in exchange for $500 worth of beer. As the concert unfolded, violence broke out between club members and sections of the crowd. The situation reached a tragic ending when Meredith Hunter was fatally stabbed near the stage by a Hells Angels member. The incident was captured in the documentary film Gimme Shelter and quickly became one of the most controversial moments in rock music history. Altamont destroyed much of the romantic image surrounding the 1960s counterculture and firmly established the Hells Angels as a powerful and feared outlaw motorcycle club. Historical timeline of major milestones. March 17, 1948. The first Hells Angels chapter is officially established in Fontana and San Bernardino, California. 1957. Sonny Barger founds the Oakland, California chapter. 1958. Otto Friedli is imprisoned, and Sonny Barger takes leadership, moving the mother chapter to Oakland. 1966. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Corporation is incorporated in California, and first XA Fox headset is X Fox headset. 1967. Hunter S. Thompson publishes Hells Angels, bringing the club nationwide attention. December 6, 1969. Violence at the Altamont Free Concert becomes one of the defining moments in the club's history. June 29, 2022. Sonny Barger passes away at the age of 83, marking the end of the Hells Angels founding era. 2. The Corporate Fortress. How the Hells Angels protect their name. To law enforcement agencies around the world, the Hells Angels are classified as an outlaw motorcycle gang linked to organized crime. But behind that public image is something many people never expect: a carefully managed corporate structure built to protect the club's identity. In 1966, under the leadership of Sonny Barger, the club established the Hells Angels Motorcycle Corporation, HAMC, in California, as a mutual benefit, non-profit organization. Its main purpose was to legally own and protect every part of the club's identity, including its name, logos, and trademarks. It's a surprising contradiction. A club known for rejecting authority has spent decades using the legal system and federal courts to defend its brand. HAMC owns several valuable trademarks. These include the name Hells Angels, the famous number 81, which stands for the eighth and first letters of the alphabet, H and A, the club's well-known red and white colors, and the iconic Death Head logo, featuring a winged skull wearing a motorcycle helmet. The club follows a simple rule: loyalties, not royalties. Unlike most companies, the Hells Angels do not license their logos to clothing brands or outside manufacturers to make money. Their patches and symbols are reserved only for full patch members and officially recognized chapters. Wearing these marks isn't about fashion, it's proof that someone has earned their place inside the Brotherhood. To protect those trademarks, the Hells Angels built an aggressive legal strategy, led for many years by intellectual property lawyer Fritz Clapp. Known for his distinctive red mohawk, Clapp became famous in legal circles and even earned the nickname, the Lawyer from Hell. Instead of waiting for companies to misuse the club's image, he regularly launched federal lawsuits against major entertainment studios, fashion brands, and online retailers. The goal wasn't simply to collect money. It was to send a clear message that no company, no matter how large, could use Hells Angels trademarks without permission. The first major legal battle came in October 1989, when HAMC filed a federal trademark lawsuit in Los Angeles against Concord New Horizons and Media Home Entertainment over the film Nan Angels. The dispute ended with an out-of-court settlement. 3 years later, in October 1992, the club took Marvel Comics to court over a comic book character named Hell's Angel. The case was settled in February 1993. Marvel agreed to rename the character Dark Angel and donated $35,000 to the Ronald McDonald House as part of the settlement. The club continued protecting its brand in 2006 and 2007, when it challenged Walt Disney Motion Pictures over the comedy film Wild Hogs. According to the lawsuit, the movie originally included the Hells Angels name and logo. Before the case reached trial, Disney removed every reference to the club from the final version of the film, after which the lawsuit was voluntarily dismissed. One of the club's biggest courtroom battles came in October 2010, when HAMC filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California against luxury fashion house Alexander McQueen. Along with Saks Fifth Avenue and Zappos.com, the case, Hells Angels Motorcycle Corp. v. Alexander McQueen Trading Limited et al. Case number 10-8029 claimed that Alexander McQueen had copied the club's trademarked death head design on several expensive luxury products. These included a $1,595 Jacquard box dress, a $2,329 Hell's Knuckle Duster, handbag, a $560 pashmina scarf, and a $495 four-finger ring. Rather than continue the case in court, Alexander McQueen and the other defendants reached an out-of-court settlement. They agreed to remove the products from sale worldwide, recall merchandise that had already been sold, and destroy the remaining inventory. For the Hells Angels, these lawsuits have always been about more than protecting a logo. They protect the value of membership itself. If anyone could buy a death head patch, leather jacket, or scarf online, the meaning behind wearing those symbols would disappear. By tightly controlling every trademark, the club decides exactly who has the right to wear its insignia. Anyone displaying the death head without official approval is viewed as an imposter, not only by Hells Angels members, but often by law enforcement as well. 3. Inside the Hells Angels: membership, rituals, and the rules of brotherhood. The Hells Angels don't accept new members overnight. Joining the club is a long process built to weed out people who aren't fully committed, as well as anyone who might be working with law enforcement. Every stage is designed to test loyalty, patience, and trust before someone is ever allowed to wear the famous patch. The road to becoming a Hells Angel. The first step is becoming a hangaround. At this stage, a person spends time around the club at public events and open clubhouses. They get to know the members, but they are not trusted with club business. During this period, patched members closely watch the candidate's personality, background, riding ability, and the real reason they want to join. The next stage is becoming a prospect. This is the club's official probation period. A prospect is attached to a specific chapter and is expected to prove complete dedication. They handle physical work, run errands, provide security when needed, and face demanding tests under pressure. The goal is simple: to prove they are loyal to the club above everything else. Only after completing this process can someone become a full patch member. Even then, membership isn't guaranteed. Every patched member of the chapter must vote unanimously before a prospect is accepted. Once approved, the new member earns the right to wear the full three-piece patch, vote during chapter meetings, and take part in important club decisions. That three-piece patch carries a lot of meaning. Worn on a leather or denim cut-off vest, the top rocker displays the name Hells Angels. The center patch features the famous Death Head logo, while the bottom rocker shows the member's chapter location. More than just clothing, the vest represents a member's loyalty, status, achievements, and commitment to the Brotherhood. The Hells Angels also use a variety of patches and sayings that have special meaning inside the club. One of the best known is the Tequilo patch. The name comes from El Tequil, the historic bugle call used by General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna's army during the Battle of the Alamo to signal that no mercy would be given. According to law enforcement intelligence, within Hells Angels culture, this patch indicates that the wearer has physically fought law enforcement officers during an arrest. The club's traditions are also reflected through sayings that have been passed down for decades. One of the best known is, "When we do right, nobody remembers. When we do wrong, nobody forgets." Another says, "Three can keep a secret if two are dead." A third, often linked to early New York City Hells Angels member Vincent Big Vinny Girolamo, is "When in doubt, knock 'em out." These phrases have become part of the club's identity and are often repeated within its culture. Although every Hells Angels chapter manages its own day-to-day affairs, the organization follows the same structure worldwide. Each chapter operates as a semi-independent unit led by elected officers, including a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and sergeant-at-arms. Members are expected to attend mandatory weekly business meetings known as church. During these meetings, members vote on financial matters, discuss new prospects, decide disciplinary actions, and manage relationships with other chapters. Above the local level, regional, national, and international officers help coordinate larger issues such as legal strategies, territorial boundaries, and overall policy, making sure that decisions made by one chapter don't damage the reputation or interests of the organization as a whole. 4. Undercover operations inside the secret world of outlaw biker clubs. Because the Hells Angels operate as a close-knit brotherhood, getting inside the club has always been one of the biggest challenges for law enforcement. Federal agencies, including the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, have spent years running deep undercover operations to understand how outlaw motorcycle clubs work from the inside. These investigations often lasted for years and placed agents under enormous psychological pressure. One of the best-known examples comes from former ATF Special Agent William Queen. Using the undercover identity Billy St. John, Queen spent 28 months infiltrating the San Fernando chapter of the Mongols motorcycle club, one of the Hells Angels' oldest and fiercest rivals in Southern California. Queen successfully completed the prospect stage and eventually became the chapter's treasurer. His experience revealed the emotional conflict that comes with living undercover for such a long time. On one side, he remained a federal agent with a duty to enforce the law. On the other, the members around him accepted him as one of their own and offered a level of loyalty and brotherhood that created a deep internal struggle. Queen later explained that while his supervisors viewed him as an undercover asset, the outlaw bikers treated him like family, creating intense psychological pressure and a gradual loss of personal identity. Another major undercover operation involved ATF Special Agent Jay Dobbins, who launched Operation Black Biscuit in the early 2000s to infiltrate Hells Angels chapters in Arizona. To gain the club's trust, Dobbins was forced to take part in extremely dangerous situations. One of the most erratic involved staging the fake murder of a rival biker to convince club members that he had proven his loyalty. The operation showed just how far undercover agents sometimes had to go to maintain their cover. These investigations also revealed something important about the Hells Angels culture. The club's 1% identity is built on complete loyalty to the group. A member's safety, reputation, and identity become deeply connected to the brotherhood itself. As William Queen later summed it up, You don't fight a Mongol or Hell's Angel, you fight the Mongols. 5. Internal purges, gang wars, and the violence that shaped the Hell's Angels. The Hell's Angels have always been known for standing together against rival clubs and law enforcement. But some of the club's most violent moments didn't involve outside enemies at all. They happened from within. Throughout its history, the organization has enforced loyalty with extreme measures, including deadly action against members it believed had become a threat to the club itself. The most notorious example took place on March 24, 1985, in Quebec, Canada, during what became known as the Lennoxville Massacre. Senior members of the Montreal chapter invited 5 members from the North chapter to the clubhouse in Lennoxville. According to investigators, the Montreal leadership believed those members had become unreliable, were struggling with drug addiction, and posed a serious security risk to the club's international operations. Instead of a meeting, they walked into an ambush. All 5 bikers were murdered inside the clubhouse. Their bodies were wrapped in sleeping bags, weighed down with heavy weight plates, and dumped into the St. Lawrence River in an attempt to hide the crime. The investigation eventually led to several convictions. Among those found guilty was Michel Langlois, a former member of the Popeyes biker gang who had helped transform that group into the Hells Angels in 1977. His conviction highlighted just how far the club's internal power struggles had gone. The Lennoxville Massacre became a turning point in Canadian biker history. It helped set the stage for the Quebec Biker War, which lasted from 1994 to 2002. During those 8 years, the Hells Angels and the Rock Machine fought for control of major narcotics distribution networks across eastern Canada. The conflict turned into one of the bloodiest biker wars ever recorded. More than 160 people lost their lives, including innocent civilians caught in the violence. The scale of the bloodshed pushed Canadian authorities to introduce stronger anti-gang legislation and demonstrated how motorcycle club rivalries could grow far beyond local disputes into large-scale organized crime conflicts. The different forms of violence. The Hells Angels have faced violence on several fronts throughout their history. External wars have usually centered on territory, control of illegal markets, and protecting chapter boundaries. Some of the club's longest-running rivalries have been with the Mongols Motorcycle Club in Southern California and the Outlaws Motorcycle Club across the American Midwest. At the same time, the club has also carried out internal purges against members or entire chapters considered undisciplined, disloyal, or vulnerable to law enforcement. The Lennoxville Massacre remains the most well-known example of that internal enforcement. These conflicts have also had a much wider impact. Large-scale biker violence has repeatedly led to major police operations, RICO prosecutions in the United States, and new organized crime laws in several countries as governments responded to the growing influence of outlaw motorcycle clubs. 6. The Hells Angels today, a brotherhood that continues to evolve. More than 7 decades after its founding, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club has shown an extraordinary ability to survive and adapt. Leadership has changed, rivalries have shifted, and law enforcement pressure has increased. Yet the organization has continued to expand across the world. An important chapter in the club's history came to an end on June 29, 2022, when Ralph "Sonny" Bodger Jr. died at his home in Livermore, California, at the age of 83, after battling liver cancer. His death marked the end of the generation that transformed the Hells Angels from a handful of California motorcycle clubs into an international organization. Bodger's funeral was held publicly at the Stockton 99 Speedway, where more than 7,000 people gathered. Patched Hells Angels members traveled from chapters around the world to pay their respects. reflecting the lasting influence of the organizational model Baga began building in Oakland more than 60 years earlier. Today, the Hells Angels maintain a presence through more than 450 chapters in 58 countries, making them one of the largest and most recognizable outlaw motorcycle clubs in the world. Part of that success comes from balancing two very different identities. On the street, the Hells Angels continue to present themselves as a fiercely loyal brotherhood that lives by its own code. At the same time, through the Hells Angels Motorcycle Corporation, the club actively uses trademark law and the court system to protect its name, logos, and commercial identity. By treating the club's symbols as valuable intellectual property, the Hells Angels have prevented their image from being freely used by outside businesses or turned into ordinary fashion. The Death Head remains far more than a logo. Within the club, it represents authority, loyalty, and status, a symbol protected not only by the members who wear it, but also through legal action in the courtroom whenever the organization believes its identity is being used without permission. Chapter 2. Bandidos, MS. The Bandidos Motorcycle Club, also known around the world as the Bandido Nation, has become one of the most recognized one-percenter outlaw motorcycle clubs in modern history. What started as a small riding club on the Texas Gulf Coast during the mid-1960s eventually grew into a tightly organized international brotherhood with hundreds of chapters spread across several continents. The story of the Bandidos is more than the rise of a motorcycle club. It also reflects the struggles many Vietnam-era veterans faced after returning home, the unique culture that developed inside outlaw biker clubs, and how these organizations transformed into powerful international networks. 1. The Gulf Coast beginning and the military influence. 1966, 1972. The Bandidos Motorcycle Club was born during a difficult period in American history. After the Vietnam War, many military veterans returned home only to find themselves disconnected from civilian life. They faced unemployment, personal struggles, and the loss of the close brotherhood they had experienced in the military. For many of them, outlaw motorcycle clubs offered something familiar, a strong sense of loyalty, structure, and belonging that they could no longer find elsewhere. The club was officially founded on March 4, 1966, by Donald Eugene Chambers, a 36-year-old Marine Corps veteran who had served during the Vietnam War. After leaving the military, Chambers worked as a dock worker and longshoreman along the Texas Gulf Coast. He felt that the motorcycle clubs around him lacked excitement and discipline. Instead, he wanted to build a club made up of people who lived by their own rules, cared little about fitting into society, and shared a passion for riding Harley-Davidson motorcycles. To grow the organization, Chambers recruited riders from biker hangouts in Houston, Galveston, Corpus Christi, and San Antonio. Many people believe the Bandidos were founded in San Antonio, but historical records tell a different story. The club actually began in San Leon, a small fishing town on Galveston Bay, about 30 miles southeast of Houston. Its working-class atmosphere and close-knit community made it the perfect place to attract the clubhead remained overhead, found the tactics and sets of life. Unlike West Coast clubs such as the Hells Angels, which grew out of California's post-World War II biker culture, the Bandidos were shaped by the Vietnam era. Chambers chose red and gold as the club's official colors because they matched the ceremonial colors of the United States Marine Corps. This decision was more than symbolic. It reflected the military-style structure he wanted for the club, with a clear chain of command, strict discipline, and an organized leadership system. By the early 1970s, the Bandidos had grown to more than 100 active members. Many of them were combat veterans, trying to adjust to life after military service. The club proudly embraced the one-percenter identity, a term that came from the American Motorcyclist Association's statement that 99% of motorcyclists were law-abiding citizens, leaving only 1% outside the law. The Bandidos adopted that label as a symbol of independence, self-rule, and rejection of outside authority. 2. Symbols, club identity, and the story behind the logo. Like many outlaw motorcycle clubs, the Bandidos place great importance on their symbols. Their patches and artwork represent loyalty, rank, and identity, while also sending a clear message about their presence and territory. The club's best-known emblem is the Fat Mexican, a cartoon-style figure wearing a sombrero and carrying a machete in one hand and a revolver in the other. The mystery behind the mascot. Inside the club, many members have long claimed that Donald Chambers based the Fat Mexican on the Frito Bandito, the well-known cartoon mascot created for Frito's corn chips. At first glance, the story sounds believable, but the timeline doesn't match the facts. The Bandidos Motorcycle Club was officially founded on March 4, 1966. The Frito Bandito advertising campaign did not appear on television until 1967. Since the commercial character did not exist when Chambers created the club and chose its identity, the story cannot be historically accurate. Most researchers believe the Fat Mexican was actually inspired by the image of Southwestern bandits, but all he knew about the idea of Southwestern bandits and legendary figures such as Pancho Villa. As the Frito Bandito became famous across America, the comparison gradually became part of the club's unofficial history, even though the dates clearly show it could not have been the original inspiration. Patch system, membership journey, and club structure. Inside the Bandidos Motorcycle Club, every patch has a purpose. The denim or leather vest, known as a cutoff, is more than riding gear. It represents a member's status, loyalty, and place within the organization. Every piece on the vest carries meaning, and members are expected to follow strict rules about how these patches are worn. At the top of the vest is the top rocker, which displays the club's name, Bandidos. Beneath it sits the club's famous Fat Mexican emblem, the symbol recognized around the world. The bottom rocker identifies the chapter's territory, showing the state or region the member belongs to, such as Texas. Another important patch is the 1% diamond, which openly identifies the wearer as part of the outlaw biker culture. One of the club's most respected insignias is the Expect No Mercy patch. Traditionally, this patch is awarded to members who have shown exceptional loyalty by physically defending the club or taking part in violent action on its behalf. Within the organization, it is viewed as a mark of commitment earned through actions rather than words. Becoming a full patch Bandido is a long process that can take months or even years. The journey begins as a hang-around, where an individual spends time with the chapter, gets to know the members, and slowly earns their trust. If chapter members believe the person is a good fit, they may sponsor them to become a prospect. As a prospect, the expectations become much tougher. Prospects handle administrative work, clean the clubhouse, assist with security, and carry out various responsibilities, while every move they make is closely watched. During this probationary period, they must prove their loyalty, discipline, and dedication to the club. Only after receiving unanimous approval from every full patch member can a prospect earn the right to wear the complete Bandidos colors. The club's culture is also reflected in several well-known mottos that have become part of its identity. Among the most recognized are, "We are the people your parents warned you about," "Cut one, we all bleed," "God forgives, Bandidos don't," and "Our colors don't run." These sayings reinforce the values of loyalty, unity, and standing together under all circumstances. 3. Leadership changes, organizational growth, and international expansion. The future of the Bandidos changed dramatically in 1972 after a major criminal case involving the club's founder. Donald Chambers was arrested in El Paso, Texas, along with 2 other members for the murders of 2 local drug dealers. After being convicted and sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms, Chambers could no longer lead the organization and was forced to hand over control. Leadership passed to Ronald Jerome Hodge, who was widely known inside the club as Stepmother. The nickname reflected Chambers' own title of mother, recognizing Hodge as his successor. Before taking over, Hodge had already earned another nickname, Mr. Prospect, because of how quickly he moved through the club's ranks. Under his leadership, the Bandidos expanded far beyond Texas and began transforming into an international motorcycle club. International expansion. The club's first major step outside the United States came in 1983, when Australian rider Anthony Mark Spencer, who had developed close ties with American Bandidos members, established the first overseas chapter in Sydney, Australia. Instead of building every chapter from scratch, the Bandidos often expanded by bringing existing local motorcycle clubs into the organization and officially converting them into Bandidos chapters. This approach became the model for the club's international growth. The expansion continued in 1989 with the opening of the club's first European charter in Marseille, France. From there, the Bandidos spread into Scandinavia, where their arrival intensified rivalries with well-established outlaw motorcycle clubs and contributed to growing tensions across the region. While the organization was expanding internationally, its American leadership remained under constant pressure from federal law enforcement. In December 1988, Ronald Hodge was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison after being convicted of conspiring to bomb vehicles and homes belonging to rival motorcycle club members. The legal pressure continued for the leaders who followed him. International presidents James Edward Lang, Charles Craig Johnston, and George Wagers all became the focus of major federal investigations involving racketeering and narcotics offenses. Each of them ultimately received lengthy prison sentences, highlighting the continuing legal challenges faced by the club's leadership. 4. International conflicts: the Great Nordic War and the Quebec Biker War. As the Bandidos expanded across the world during the 1990s, their rapid growth brought them into direct conflict with rival outlaw motorcycle clubs. 2 of the most violent chapters in the club's history unfolded in Northern Europe and Canada, where battles over territory, influence, and smuggling routes turned into deadly wars. The Great Nordic Biker War, 1994-1997. When the Bandidos established new chapters in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, they entered territories where the Hells Angels already held a strong presence. Both clubs fought for control of profitable smuggling routes and regional influence, and the rivalry quickly escalated into what became known as the Great Nordic Biker War. The violence soon went far beyond street fights. Members from both sides carried out drive-by shootings, planted car bombs, and even used military-grade weapons. In one of the conflict's most shocking developments, shoulder-fired anti-tank rocket launchers were fired directly at rival clubhouses located in densely populated urban areas. The scale of the violence stunned the Nordic countries. Dozens of people lost their lives, and governments across Northern Europe responded by introducing tough anti-gang laws designed to curb the growing power of outlaw motorcycle clubs. The Quebec Biker War. In the late 1990s, the Bandidos turned their attention north of the US South border and began expanding into Canada. At that time, Quebec was already in the middle of a brutal 8-year biker conflict between the Hells Angels and the Rock Machine Motorcycle Club. In an effort to challenge the growing influence of the Hells Angels, the Montreal-based Rock Machine officially merged with the Bandidos in 2000, giving the club a significant foothold in Canada. The Quebec Biker War became one of the deadliest biker conflicts in modern history. More than 160 people were killed, including rival club members, law enforcement officers, and innocent civilians caught in the violence. The prolonged conflict placed enormous pressure on the Bandidos' operations in Quebec. After suffering heavy losses, the club withdrew from the province in 2003, effectively leaving Quebec under Hells Angels' control, while concentrating its remaining Canadian chapters in Ontario. 5. The Shedden Massacre, the internal purge that ended the Bandidos in Canada. Also present were Matha and Brett Gardner, while Wayne Killisteyn's associate Frank Sandom took up a firing position in the rafters of the barn with a rifle. The shooting began almost immediately. Luis Manny Raposo was the first to be killed. According to forensic evidence presented later, Raposo died while raising his middle finger in defiance. Sandom's rifle round struck his raised hand, severing the finger before killing him. As Paul Sinopoli and George Kriakis attempted to escape, Killisteyn opened fire and wounded both men. With the remaining survivors held at gunpoint, Killisteyn announced that, according to orders from the American leadership, their Bandidos patches had been revoked. Over the next several hours, each captive was taken outside individually and executed with close-range gunshots to the head. After the killings, the victims' bodies were loaded into 4 different vehicles, including passenger cars and a tow truck. The vehicles were then abandoned in a remote farmer's field near the village of Shedden, Ontario. The gruesome discovery the following morning launched what became the largest mass murder investigation in Ontario's history. And the case finally reached court. All 6 principal conspirators were convicted of first-degree murder. The massacre completely destroyed the Bandidos' leadership in Canada. With its command structure wiped out, the club could no longer maintain its presence in the country, leading to the closure of every remaining Canadian Bandidos chapter by December 2007. 6. Organizational split, independent leadership, and the modern Bandidos. Years of international biker wars, federal investigations, and the devastating impact of the Shedden Massacre eventually forced the Bandidos to reorganize their global structure. The split of 2007. On July 17, 2007, the Bandidos Motorcycle Club officially divided into 2 separate international organizations. The chapters located throughout the United States, Central America, and South America declared complete administrative independence from the international organization that oversaw chapters in Europe, Australia, and Asia. From that point forward, the 2 organizations operated separately, each with its own leadership, internal policies, financial management, and decision-making structure. To further distinguish themselves from the overseas organization, the American Bandidos introduced a redesigned patch and rocker layout in 2011, creating a clear visual difference between the 2 branches while preserving the club's overall identity. The Waco Twin Peaks Shootout, 2015. Even after the Bandidos split into separate international organizations, the American branch continued to maintain tight control over Texas. The club remained the state's dominant outlaw motorcycle organization, and smaller local clubs were generally expected to pay operational fees and receive approval before expanding into new territory. Tensions grew when the Cossacks Motorcycle Club refused to recognize that authority. The dispute became even more serious after Cossacks members began wearing the Texas bottom rocker on their vests without the approval of the Bandidos, something the club viewed as a direct challenge to its territorial control. On May 17, 2015, members of both clubs gathered at a Twin Peaks restaurant in Waco, Texas, for what was supposed to be a political meeting involving several motorcycle clubs. What began as an argument in the parking lot quickly exploded into a violent confrontation involving handguns, knives, and police marksmen who were already positioned nearby. By the time the shooting ended, 9 bikers had been killed, 18 people were injured and 177 individuals were arrested, making it one of the largest mass arrest operations in American law enforcement history. During the investigation, intelligence gathered by authorities indicated that, despite years of federal pressure, the Bandidos still had more than 1,100 active members in Texas alone, reinforcing the club's position as the state's most influential outlaw motorcycle organization. 7. Organization, leadership, and the future of the Bandidos. Although the Bandidos are often portrayed as a loose group of rebellious bikers, the club actually operates through a well-defined organizational structure supported by strict internal rules and established bylaws. Every local chapter holds mandatory weekly meetings known within the biker community as church. These meetings follow formal parliamentary procedures and are used to discuss club business, make decisions, and handle internal matters. Each chapter is managed by a standard leadership team. The president has overall authority over the chapter, overseeing day-to-day operations, relationships with other clubs, and decisions involving future expansion. The vice president serves as the second in command, helping manage the chapter's internal affairs and taking over leadership responsibilities when necessary. The secretary and treasurer handle the club's finances, collect monthly dues, manage legal defense funds, maintain membership records, and oversee official documentation. The sergeant-at-arms is responsible for chapter security, tactical planning, enforcing discipline, and making sure club rules are followed. The club's finances are supported through membership dues, merchandise sales, and operational fees collected from affiliated support clubs. Rules inside the organization are enforced strictly. Members who fail to attend required meetings, refuse to assist another Bandido, or show disrespect toward club officers can face mandatory punishment. Depending on the violation, penalties may include financial fines, physical discipline, or expulsion from the club, out in bad standing. Today, the Bandidos Motorcycle Club remains the fourth largest outlaw motorcycle club in the world, ranking behind the Hells Angels, Outlaws, and Pagans. From its beginnings on the Texas Gulf Coast to its expansion across multiple continents, the Bandidos have built an organization shaped by military discipline, a strong club identity, and a highly structured leadership system. Despite decades of law enforcement crackdowns, internal power struggles, and organizational splits, the Bandido Nation continues to hold a significant place within the global outlaw biker world. Chapter 3: Mongols, MC. The story of the Mongols Motorcycle Club, known by its members as the Mongol Nation or the Mongol Brotherhood, began on December 5, 1969, in Montebello, California. The club was founded by 10 military veterans who had recently returned home after serving in the Vietnam War. Like many veterans before them, they missed the close brotherhood, discipline, and sense of purpose they had experienced in combat. Riding motorcycles gave them a way to reconnect with that lifestyle, much like the early founders of clubs such as the Pissed Off Bastards of Bloomington and the Hells Angels after World War II. But the Mongols were born under very different circumstances. By the late 1960s, several well-known outlaw motorcycle clubs, especially the Hells Angels, had membership policies that either openly or unofficially kept non-white riders, including many Hispanic and African American bikers, from becoming full members. For many Hispanic veterans and riders from the neighborhoods of East Los Angeles, there simply wasn't a place for them inside those organizations. Instead of accepting that reality, they decided to build a club of their own. From the very beginning, the founders wanted the club to project strength, fearlessness, and a warrior spirit. The club's first national president, Louis Costello, chose the name Mongols as a tribute to Genghis Khan and the legendary Mongol Empire, a symbol of military power and conquest. One of the club's earliest leaders, Sergeant-at-Arms Alfonso Big Al Aceves, brought real battlefield experience into the organization. After serving 3 combat tours in Vietnam with the 101st Airborne Division, Aceves was known for his toughness and combat mindset. Along with other veterans, he helped shape the club using military-style discipline, tactical thinking, and the leadership skills they had learned during the war. Once the club was established, it didn't stay small for long. The Mongols quickly spread throughout Southern California, opening chapters across Los Angeles, the San Gabriel Valley, the San Fernando Valley, Long Beach, San Diego, and Bakersfield. As membership increased, the organization began developing a stronger identity and a more structured way of operating. A major turning point came in 1974. That year, members voted to move away from the image of a traditional recreational motorcycle club and officially embrace the 1% outlaw lifestyle. It marked a defining moment in the club's history and shaped the direction it would follow for decades. As the organization continued to grow, it also expanded its recruitment efforts. One of the club's most important recruiting grounds became California's prison system, particularly the California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo. Building connections inside correctional facilities created a steady flow of new recruits and strengthened the relationship between the outlaw biker world and prison gang networks. A connection that played a major role in the club's growth across the United States. Organizational hierarchy, insignia, and subcultural governance. The Mongol nation is organized through a leadership structure that closely resembles a military chain of command. This system is designed to maintain discipline, oversee expansion, and ensure that every chapter follows the same rules and direction. At the top of the organization is the Mother Chapter, which serves as the club's highest governing body. Led by the national president and senior national officers, the Mother Chapter makes major decisions that affect every chapter in the organization. While the club was historically based in Montebello and later Commerce, California, its national headquarters is now located in West Covina, California. Joining the Mongols is a long process, not something that happens overnight. Anyone hoping to become a full member must first spend time as a prospect. During this probation period, prospects are expected to carry out assignments, follow every instruction given by fully patched members, and prove that they can be trusted. They also go through extensive background checks designed to reduce the risk of law enforcement infiltration. There are also strict membership requirements. Prospective members must own a working Harley-Davidson motorcycle and demonstrate complete loyalty to the club's rules and traditions. The organization does not accept female members, with women typically referred to as old ladies, a role separate from official membership. In North America, the club also excludes African American men from membership, while accepting Hispanic, white, Asian American, and Native American members. Outside the United States, recruitment policies often reflect local demographics. In Australia, members have included individuals of Anglo-Celtic, Greek, and Middle Eastern backgrounds, while chapters in Germany have recruited from Arab and Kurdish communities. The club's identity is also recognized through its distinctive colors, often called the cut. Members wear a 3-piece patch sewn onto leather or denim vests. The top rocker displays the name Mongols. The center patch features the club's well-known logo, a cartoon version of Genghis Khan wearing sunglasses, bell-bottom pants, and a top knot while riding a motorcycle. The bottom rocker identifies the territory claimed by that specific chapter. Additional patches represent a member's rank, military service, 1% status, and official club slogans. They reinforce the club's culture by reminding members that loyalty to the Mongol nation comes before personal interests, making commitment to the organization one of its core expectations. Territorial expansion, gang alliances, and international growth. As the Mongols Motorcycle Club expanded beyond Southern California, it gradually transformed from a local biker club into an international organization. Today, law enforcement agencies, including the US Department of Justice, Europol, and the Australian Federal Police, have identified the Mongols as an organized crime syndicate. As the club spread into new territories, it built a network of alliances and overseas chapters that strengthened its influence far beyond its original home. Inside the United States, the Mongols developed working relationships with several prison gangs and street gangs. According to law enforcement investigations, these partnerships helped support large-scale drug trafficking, illegal firearms distribution, money laundering, and violent enforcement activities. In Southern California, the club established long-standing ties with the Mexican Mafia, also known as La M, along with its affiliated street gangs, the Sureños. In Northern California, the Mongols maintained alliances with Nuestra Familia and the Norteños, while also keeping connections with groups such as the Nazi lowriders. Investigators also linked the club to international drug supply networks, including wholesale cocaine sources connected to the Tijuana cartel. The club's recruitment strategy also changed during the late 1990s and early 2000s. While serving as national president, Ruben Doc Cavazos introduced a policy that allowed active street gang members, mostly from Sureños neighborhoods, to join the Mongols directly. The move quickly increased the club's size and gave it a stronger street presence. But it also changed the culture inside the organization, shifting many of its methods away from traditional motorcycle club customs and toward tactics more commonly associated with street gangs. Outside the United States, the Mongol nation continued expanding at a rapid pace. Over time, the club established chapters in 28 countries, often by taking over existing motorcycle clubs through a process known as a patchover. One of the biggest international expansions happened in Australia in October 2013, when the Mongols absorbed the Finks Motorcycle Club. The operation was led by Peter Chop Emerton, who became the first Australian national president of the Mongols. Overnight, the club gained an established presence in New South Wales and Queensland. The expansion immediately drew the attention of Australian authorities and led to aggressive action under the country's anti-gang laws. Similar growth followed across Germany, other parts of Western Europe, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia, giving the Mongols a truly international presence. Over the years, several well-known public figures have also crossed paths with the club. Former Minnesota governor and professional wrestler Jesse Ventura famously rode with the Mongols during the 1970s. Another key figure was Justin Delaretto, who served as a chapter president for 15 years in Oregon, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. During his time in leadership, he helped oversee the club's domestic expansion while also supporting its growth into Australia and parts of Asia, before eventually leaving the organization. Escalation of the outlaw biker war, the 2002 Laughlin River Run shootout. For outlaw motorcycle clubs, territory is more than just geography, it's part of their identity. That claim is displayed on the bottom rocker of every club's patch. When the Mongols began wearing California on their colors during the early 1970s, it directly challenged the Hells Angels, who had long considered California to be their exclusive territory. That rivalry would continue for decades, growing more violent with each passing year. The conflict reached one of its bloodiest moments on April 27, 2002, during the annual Laughlin River Run in Laughlin, Nevada. Every year, the rally attracted more than 80,000 motorcycle enthusiasts, bringing riders from across the country into the small resort town. But alongside thousands of ordinary bikers were members of rival outlaw clubs. While chapters in Germany have recruited from Arab and Kurdish communities, the club's identity is also recognized through its distinctive colors, often called the cut. Members wear a three-piece patch sewn onto leather or denim vests. The top rocker displays the name Mongols. The center patch features the club's well-known logo, a cartoon version of Genghis Khan wearing sunglasses, bell-bottom pants, and a top knot while riding a motorcycle. The bottom rocker identifies the territory claimed by that specific chapter. Additional patches represent a member's rank, military service, 1% status, and official club slogans. They reinforce the club's culture by reminding members that loyalty to the Mongol nation comes before personal interests, making commitment to the organization one of its core expectations. Territorial expansion, gang alliances, and international growth. As the Mongols Motorcycle Club expanded beyond Southern California, it gradually transformed from a local biker club into an international organization. Today, law enforcement agencies, including the US Department of Justice, Europol, and the Australian Federal Police, have identified the Mongols as an organized crime syndicate. As the club spread into new territories, it built a network of alliances and overseas chapters that strengthened its influence far beyond its original home. Inside the United States, the Mongols developed working relationships with several prison gangs and street gangs. According to law enforcement investigations, these partnerships helped support large-scale drug trafficking, illegal firearms distribution, money laundering, and violent enforcement activities. In Southern California, the club established long-standing ties with the Mexican Mafia, also known as La M, along with its affiliated street gangs, the Chirenos. In Northern California, the Mongols maintained alliances with Nuestra Familia and the Norteños, while also keeping connections with groups such as the Nazi lowriders. Investigators also linked the club to international drug supply networks, including wholesale cocaine sources connected to the Tijuana cartel. The club's recruitment strategy also changed during the late 1990s and early 2000s. While serving as national president, Ruben Doc Cavazos introduced a policy that allowed active street gang members, mostly from Chirenos neighborhoods, to join the Mongols directly. The move quickly increased the club's size and even a stronger street presence. Zephyros made Zephyros.
But it also changed the culture inside the organization, shifting many of its methods away from traditional motorcycle club customs and toward tactics more commonly associated with street gangs. Outside the United States, the Mongol nation continued expanding at a rapid pace. Over time, the club established chapters in 28 countries, often by taking over existing motorcycle clubs through a process known as a patchover.
One of the biggest international expansions happened in Australia in October 2013, when the Mongols absorbed the Finks Motorcycle Club. The operation was led by Peter Chop Emerton, who became the first Australian national president of the Mongols. Overnight, the club gained an established presence in New South Wales and Queensland. The expansion immediately drew the attention of Australian authorities and led to aggressive action under the country's anti-gang laws. Similar growth followed across Germany, other parts of Western Europe, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia, giving the Mongols a truly international presence. Over the years, several well-known public figures have also crossed paths with the club. Former Minnesota governor and professional wrestler Jesse Ventura famously rode with the Mongols during the 1970s. Another key figure was Justin Delaretto, who served as a chapter president for 15 years in Oregon, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. During his time in leadership, he helped oversee the club's domestic expansion while also supporting its growth into Australia and parts of Asia before eventually leaving the organization. Escalation of the outlaw biker war. The 2002 Laughlin River Run shootout. For outlaw motorcycle clubs, territory is more than just geography. It's part of their identity. That claim is displayed on the bottom rocker of every club's patch. When the Mongols began wearing California on their colors during the early 1970s, it directly challenged the Hells Angels, who had long considered California to be their exclusive territory. That rivalry would continue for decades, growing more violent with each passing year. The conflict reached one of its bloodiest moments on April 27, 2002, during the annual Lachlan River Run in Lachlan, Nevada. Every year, the rally attracted more than 80,000 motorcycle enthusiasts, bringing riders from across the country into the small resort town. But alongside thousands of ordinary bikers were members of rival outlaw clubs. Law enforcement had already warned casino management that tensions between the Hells Angels and the Mongols were rising. The Hells Angels delegation included well-known figures such as Sonny Barger and George Christie, while the Mongols were led by Ruben Doc Cavazos. The Hells Angels were staying at the Flamingo Hilton, while the Mongols had made Harrah's Laughlin their headquarters. At approximately 2:15 a.m., the Hells Angels members entered the main gaming floor of Harrah's casino, heading toward a group of Mongols gathered near the entrance bar. Within moments, the confrontation exploded into violence in front of thousands of casino guests. The fight unfolded in several stages. Initial physical altercation, what began as a heated verbal confrontation, quickly turned into fistfights, with groups from both clubs battling across the casino floor. Deployment of edged and blunt weapons. As the violence intensified, participants pulled out knives, hammers, wrenches, heavy flashlights, and weighted leather cosses, turning the brawl into a deadly melee. Firearm engagement. The violence escalated again when several members drew concealed handguns and opened fire. Dealers and customers scrambled beneath blackjack tables for cover, while dozens of shots echoed through the casino. By the time the shooting ended, 3 men were dead inside Harrah's casino. Mongols member Anthony Salvador Barrera was stabbed to death. Hells Angels members Jeremy Bell and Robert Tumulty were killed by gunfire. A 4th victim, Hells Angels member Christian Tate, was later killed in a drive-by shooting on Interstate 40 near Ludlow, California, as club members dispersed after the incident. At least 16 other people suffered serious injuries, including gunshot wounds, severe stab wounds, and one victim who sustained a depressed skull fracture. Police responded immediately. Officers from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, supported by tactical units from California and Arizona, sealed off the town and detained between 100 and 200 bikers inside the casino while investigators secured the scene. Crime scene technicians later recovered 9 handguns, 65 knives, and numerous blunt force weapons from the property. The impact of the incident extended well beyond the criminal investigation. In 2010, a Clark County District Court jury found Harrah's Laughlin civilly liable for injuries suffered by innocent bystanders. The court concluded that casino management had received advance warnings from law enforcement about the possibility of violence, but failed to put adequate security measures in place to protect the public. Federal prosecutions, from undercover infiltration to the historic RICO case, the violence at the Laughlin River Run became a turning point. After the deadly casino shootout, federal authorities stepped up their efforts to dismantle the Mongol nation from the inside. Their goal was no longer just to arrest individual members, it was to weaken the club's leadership and disrupt the way the organization operated. The agency leading much of that effort was the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, better known as the ATF. Rather than relying only on surveillance or informants, investigators launched long-term undercover operations aimed at gaining the trust of the club's members. One of the most significant undercover missions was carried out by ATF Special Agent William Queen. Using the undercover identity Billy St. John, Queen successfully infiltrated the Mongols' San Fernando Valley chapter. Over time, he earned the trust of members and eventually became the chapter's treasurer, giving him direct access to the club's internal operations. During his years undercover, Queen gathered evidence involving drug trafficking, illegal weapons possession, violent assaults, and conspiracies to commit murder. Just as importantly, his investigation gave federal prosecutors a rare look at how decisions moved through the organization, from senior leaders down to fully patched members carrying out orders. The evidence collected by Queen, along with information from later undercover investigations, laid the foundation for one of the largest federal operations ever directed at the club. In 2008, the United States Attorney's Office launched Operation Black Rain. The operation involved coordinated raids across California, Nevada, Colorado, and Arizona, where federal agents carried out dozens of search warrants and arrest warrants at the same time. When the operation concluded, a federal grand jury had indicted 79 members of the Mongols Motorcycle Club, including National President Ruben Duck Cavazos, under the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, commonly known as RICO. But prosecutors didn't stop with individual criminal charges. They introduced a legal strategy that had rarely been attempted before. Instead of charging only the people involved, federal prosecutors also brought RICO charges against the motorcycle club itself. In 2018, Assistant U.S. Attorneys Christopher M. Brunwyn and Stephen R. Welk prosecuted the Mongol nation, treating the organization as an unincorporated association in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California in Santa Ana. After a trial that lasted merely a month, U.S. District Judge David O. Carter presided over the case. In December 2018, the federal jury found the Mongol nation guilty of racketeering and racketeering conspiracy. Jurors concluded that the organization itself, not just individual members, had taken part in a continuing pattern of criminal activity. According to the verdict, that activity included a 2007 murder carried out in Los Angeles, a 2008 attempted murder in Pasadena, long-running drug trafficking operations involving wholesale distribution of methamphetamine, cocaine, and marijuana over several years. The verdict marked a significant legal milestone. For the first time, an unincorporated motorcycle club had been successfully prosecuted and convicted as a criminal enterprise under the federal RICO statute, creating an important legal precedent for future organized crime cases. Zephyros. The trademark battle, a fight over the club's patch. The courtroom battle did not end with the 2018 conviction. After winning the RICO case, the U.S. Attorney's Office pursued another unusual legal strategy. This time, prosecutors wanted to seize the Mongols' trademarked patch. Their argument was straightforward. The famous Genghis Khan logo was more than just artwork. It was the symbol that identified the organization everywhere it operated. If the federal government gained ownership of that trademark through the United States Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO, prosecutors believed it could stop members from legally displaying the patch in public. In theory, that would also allow law enforcement officers to confiscate the club's colors directly from members wearing them. The Mongols' legal team strongly opposed the request. Defense attorneys Stephen Stubbs and Joseph A. Zenny argued that taking ownership of the club's symbol would go beyond asset forfeiture and would violate constitutional protections involving free expression and association. On February 28, 2019, Judge David O. Carter issued a detailed 51-page ruling rejecting the government's request. The court refused to transfer ownership of the trademark to the federal government, finding that such a move would violate constitutional protections. Judge Carter's decision focused on two major constitutional principles surrounding asset forfeiture. First Amendment, freedom of expression, and freedom of association. The court ruled that forcing the Mongols to surrender their trademark would place an unconstitutional restriction on symbolic speech and freedom of association. According to Judge Carter, the club's membership patch is more than just a logo. It acts as a symbol that tells others a person belongs to the Mongol nation and identifies with the organization's collective identity. Because of that, the court concluded that the government could not use trademark law as a way to silence symbolic expression or restrict a person's right to associate with a group, even when individual members of that organization had been convicted of criminal offenses. Eighth Amendment protection against excessive fines. The court also examined the government's request under the Eighth Amendment, which protects people from excessive fines and punishments. Judge David O. Carter ruled that taking away a symbol the club had used continuously since 1969 would be grossly disproportionate to the racketeering conspiracy conviction. In other words, the punishment would go far beyond what the law considered reasonable. The judge made an important distinction. He explained that the government has the authority to seize assets connected to criminal activity, including cash, firearms, vehicles, and real estate. But constitutional rights are different. Those protections cannot simply be taken away as part of a criminal penalty. Although the court allowed the criminal fines imposed on the organization to remain in place, it refused to strip the club of its trademark. That decision became an important example of how constitutional protections for symbolic expression are applied under American law. Modern paranoia and leadership challenges. The informant controversy. Number 1. Even after successfully defending its trademark in federal court, the Mongol nation continued to face serious internal problems. The pressure no longer came only from law enforcement investigations. Distrust within the club, leadership conflicts, and constant concerns about surveillance created new challenges from the inside. Like many outlaw motorcycle clubs, the Mongols depend heavily on loyalty and secrecy. When members begin questioning one another, that foundation can quickly cease. That foundation can quickly start to crack. Those tensions became highly visible after David Santillan took over as national president, following the expulsion of Ruben Doc Cavazos. In mid-2021, a private audio recording involving Santillan was leaked to members throughout the club. The recording had been secretly made by his wife, Annie Santillan, during a domestic dispute. It captured a private phone conversation about the expected retirement of ATF Special Agent John Ciccone, the federal investigator who had spent years overseeing investigations into the Mongols in Southern California. During that conversation, Santillan said, "After a year he is gone, and he can't protect me, so we need an exit strategy." Once the recording spread through the organization, suspicion grew rapidly. Some members accused Santillan of secretly working as a confidential informant for the ATF. The controversy soon reached federal court. Defense attorney Joseph Yanni filed an emergency motion requesting a new trial. He argued that if Santillan had been acting as a covert government informant during the 2018 RICO trial, it could have compromised the defense's legal strategy and created improper communication between the club's leadership and federal investigators. When the matter came before the court in mid-2022, Santillan firmly rejected those accusations. Testifying under oath, he denied ever serving as an informant for the ATF or any other government agency. According to Santillan, his conversations with Agent John Ciccone were limited to maintaining a professional line of communication. He testified that the purpose was to reduce the risk of violent confrontations with rival motorcycle clubs and to minimize major law enforcement incidents during club gatherings. Even with those explanations, the damage had already been done. The leaked recording weakened trust inside the organization and exposed one of the biggest weaknesses facing modern outlaw motorcycle clubs. While these organizations often learn to adapt to police investigations and criminal prosecutions, they remain vulnerable to internal suspicion, personal disputes, and intelligence gathering from both inside and outside the club. Institutional legacy and the broader legal picture. The history of the Mongols Motorcycle Club reflects the changing face of outlaw motorcycle culture in the United States. The organization began with combat veterans searching for brotherhood after the Vietnam War, while also confronting racial barriers that existed within parts of the outlaw biker world. Over time, it grew into a complex organization operating across multiple countries and jurisdictions. Its history shows how a close-knit motorcycle club can evolve into an international network that attracts the attention of law enforcement agencies around the world. From both a law enforcement and legal perspective, the Mongol nation has influenced several important developments. Militarized organizational structure. The club demonstrated how military experience, battlefield discipline, and a strict chain of command could be adapted into the structure of an outlaw motorcycle club, shaping the way the organization operated internally. Territorial conflict and public safety. The long-running dispute over the California bottom rocker became far more than a disagreement over a patch. It contributed to violent confrontations that forced law enforcement agencies and commercial property owners to rethink security planning, public safety measures, and legal responsibility during large public motorcycle events. Constitutional limits on asset forfeiture. The landmark 2019 federal court ruling established an important legal boundary. While the government may seize physical property and criminal proceeds under RICO laws, constitutional protections under the First Amendment and Eighth Amendment prevent it from taking intellectual property and collective membership symbols simply as part of a criminal punishment. Ongoing vulnerability to intelligence operations. The Mongols' history also highlights another reality. No matter how established an outlaw motorcycle club becomes, it remains vulnerable to undercover investigations, long-term law enforcement surveillance, confidential sources, and internal leadership disputes that can threaten the organization's stability. Today, the Mongol nation continues to serve as one of the most closely studied examples of an outlaw motorcycle club. As federal investigations become more sophisticated, surveillance technology continues to advance, and membership changes over time, the club's history remains a case study in the ongoing tension between outlaw biker culture, organized crime investigations, and the constitutional protections guaranteed under American law. Chapter 4. Outlaws. MC. The Outlaws Motorcycle Club is widely recognized as the oldest documented outlaw motorcycle club in the world. Its story began long before the biker culture that grew after World War II. The club was founded in 1935 at Matilda's Bar on the famous Route 66 in McCook, Illinois, about 15 miles southwest of downtown Chicago. The original founders were employees of the Electromotive Company, led by John Davis. At first, the group was known as the McCook Outlaws, made up of hard-working factory workers who simply enjoyed riding motorcycles together on the quiet roads around Cook County. In those early years, it was a local riding club, long before three-piece back patches, organized criminal investigations, or the one-percenter identity became part of biker culture. When World War II began, the club's growth came to a temporary stop as many members left to serve in the military. Unlike many motorcycle clubs that disappeared during the war, the McCook Outlaws managed to stay together. In May 1946, after the war ended, members reunited and attended the first major post-war motorcycle rally at Soldier Field in Chicago. The gathering brought new energy to the club, attracting returning veterans and factory workers from across the Chicago area who shared the same passion for motorcycles. By 1950, the club had outgrown McCook. Its headquarters moved to Chicago's South Side, and the organization officially became the Chicago Outlaws Motorcycle Club. The move also marked a major change in the club's image. Members retired their original winged motorcycle logo and replaced it with a small skull designed alongside Old English lettering. The design was hand-painted onto leather jackets and stitched onto black clothing, creating a look that members proudly wore. The logo continued to evolve. In 1954, crossed pistons were added behind the skull, and the new design first appeared on black Western-style shirts with white piping. The updated look reflected the style that had become popular in America during the 1950s, especially after the release of the 1953 film, The Wild One. 5 years later, in 1959, the emblem was redesigned once again. The skull became larger, more detailed, and was paired with the crossed pistons in the form that would eventually become the club's permanent symbol. Institutionalization, identity, and federation. 1960–1979. The early 1960s became a turning point for the Chicago Outlaws. As disagreements grew between officially sanctioned motorcycle organizations and independent riding clubs, the Outlaws began embracing a stronger outlaw identity. The American Motorcycle Association, which oversaw official motorcycle racing in the United States, banned riders from displaying the word Outlaws on racing uniforms. Instead of backing down, club members simply replaced the name with the initials OMC on their racing gear, a practice they continued until around 1963 or 1964. Rather than weakening the club, the ban strengthened its identity. By 1963, the Chicago Outlaws declared themselves the first official one-percenter motorcycle club east of the Mississippi River. The decision reflected the club's growing belief that it stood apart from mainstream motorcycle organizations and traditional authority. The next major step came on July 4, 1964. The club expanded beyond Chicago by bringing the Gypsy Outlaws of Milwaukee, Wisconsin into the organization as its second official chapter. More mergers soon followed, including the Colt Biker Club from Voorheesville, New York, and the Gypsy Raiders. As new chapters joined, the Chicago chapter became the executive mother chapter that guided the growing regional organization. On January 1, 1965, the club officially created the American Outlaws Association, better known as the AOA. The initials were deliberately chosen as a direct challenge to the American Motorcycle Association, or AMA. Around the same time,
members gave their famous skull and cross pistons patch its official name, Charlie. As the organization became more structured, it also developed its core beliefs. During this period, the phrase, "God forgives, outlaws don't," often shortened to GFOD, became the club's official motto. It represented the club's emphasis on loyalty, retaliation against betrayal, and an unwavering refusal to cooperate with law enforcement. Expansion continued quickly during the late 1960s.
In July 1967, leaders from the Chicago Mother Chapter traveled to Florida to establish the club's first chapter in the southeastern United States. That move into Florida gave the organization a strong presence along the East Coast and later became an important part of the club's overall growth. The Outlaws' reach soon extended beyond the United States. In the early 1970s, the club expanded into Canada by absorbing the Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club, turning its existing chapters into official AOA charters. During the mid to late 1990s, the organization moved into Western Europe by bringing independent clubs into the Outlaws family, including MC44 in France, whose members wore a bottom rocker labeled Europe. Before long, The expansion continued into Australia as additional independent chapters joined the growing international network. Structural architecture, leadership, and patch symbolism. The Outlaws Motorcycle Club follows a highly organized leadership system, built around a strict chain of command. While each local chapter handles its own day-to-day affairs, major decisions, including club policies, territorial matters, and relationships with other motorcycle clubs, are controlled by the national and international executive officers. This structure allows local chapters to operate independently while still following one set of rules across the organization. At the top of the hierarchy is the International Executive Board, the club's highest decision-making body. Led by the international president, this board oversees global policy, territorial expansion, and disciplinary actions involving chapters around the world. Below them are the regional presidents, who supervise large territories that may include several states or even entire countries. They act as the link between local chapters and the international leadership, making sure club directives are carried out consistently. Each local chapter is managed by its own leadership team. These officers include the chapter president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and sergeant-at-arms. Together, they oversee daily operations, maintain internal discipline, and ensure that every member follows club rules. Once a member earns full membership, they become a full patch member. These members have voting rights within their chapter, wear the complete three-piece patch, and take part in the club's activities and decision-making process. Before reaching that level, candidates spend time as probationary, or probate members. This stage can last several months and serves as a final evaluation period. During this time, members wear a single bottom rocker that reads, "Probationary Outlaws," clearly identifying their status within the club. Before becoming probationary members, candidates first serve as prospects. Every prospect is sponsored by a full patch member and is expected to handle support duties while proving loyalty, discipline, and commitment to the organization. The first step into the club begins as a hang-around. These unofficial associates spend time around the chapter, helping with basic clubhouse responsibilities and social events while building trust with existing members. Moving from hang-around to full patch member is a long process, and every stage is designed to test loyalty and reliability. A person usually starts by helping the club as a hang-around. If a full patch member agrees to sponsor them, they become a prospect and take on greater responsibilities. After successfully completing that stage, they move up to probationary or probate status, wearing the required probationary outlaws bottom rocker. Only after receiving unanimous approval from every voting member of the chapter can they finally earn full patch status and wear the complete three-piece colors. For every full member, the most recognizable symbol is the club vest, commonly known as a cut. On the back is the traditional three-piece patch layout used by many one-percenter motorcycle clubs. The top rocker is a curved patch displaying the name Outlaws in the club's distinctive lettering. The center patch features the club's famous emblem, Charlie, a skull placed over a pair of crossed engine pistons. The bottom rocker identifies the member's chapter by showing the city, state, country, or larger region they belong to, such as Europe. The front and sides of the vest carry additional patches that reveal a member's rank, years of service, personal achievements, and position within the club. Leadership patches such as president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and sergeant-at-arms are worn on the front of the vest. Members may also wear the 1% diamond patch, which represents the club's identification with the 1% biker culture. Some patches have meanings that are understood only within the club. One example is AAIOS, South, which stands for 8 AUS. Angels die in outlaw states. The phrase is widely recognized as a direct expression of hostility toward the Outlaws' longtime rivals, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Court records from federal racketeering cases have also described other internal awards. According to evidence presented during those prosecutions, one of these is the SS South Twin Lightning Bolts patch, which prosecutors alleged was awarded to members involved in serious acts of club-approved violence, including homicides, attempted murders, or bombings. To strengthen its influence while shielding its core membership, the American Outlaws Association also maintains several support clubs. The best known of these is the Black Pistons Motorcycle Club, which operates under the oversight of the AOA. According to law enforcement investigations, the Black Pistons have served as a recruitment source, an intelligence network, and a support organization, allowing full-patch Outlaws members to create distance between themselves and direct law enforcement attention during alleged criminal activities, inter-gang warfare, and strategic rivalries. The history of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club cannot be separated from its long-running conflicts with rival biker organizations, especially the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. While many people see this rivalry as a personal feud between two outlaw clubs, criminal investigations and academic research suggest that the real battle has often centered on control of drug trafficking routes, extortion operations, and valuable territory. The Outlaws have long claimed seniority because of their history as America's oldest outlaw motorcycle club, and they have consistently resisted giving up territory to rival groups. One of the most infamous chapters in this conflict unfolded on April 27, 1974, in South Florida. Three men connected to Hells Angels, Ray Hartman, Edwin Riverboat Riley, and Albert Oskey Simmons, were invited to a tavern in Fort Lauderdale, under the belief that they were meeting to discuss a drug deal. According to investigators, when they arrived, they were ambushed by four members of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. The three men were tied up, forced into a vehicle, and taken to a gravel quarry in Andytown, Florida. There, each was shot at close range with a 12-gauge shotgun. Their bodies were weighed down with concrete cinder blocks and dumped into a flooded rock pit nearly 20 feet deep. The killings came to light on May 1, 1974, after one body floated to the surface, leading police divers to recover the other victims. The murders dramatically escalated tensions between the two clubs. After conducting its own internal investigation, the Hells Angels national leadership held an emergency meeting in Cleveland, Ohio, where it officially declared war on the Outlaws. In response, Outlaws National President Harold Stairway Harry Henderson instructed chapters across the country to reinforce their clubhouses with concrete block walls and defensive gun ports. Between 1974 and 1975, the violence continued as the Hells Angels launched a series of automatic weapons attacks against Outlaws clubhouses in Georgia, Florida, and Ohio. The rivalry continued for decades, with clashes breaking out in public on several occasions. One of the most serious incidents happened on September 25, 1994, at the Lancaster National Speedway in Lancaster, New York. Members of both the Outlaws and the Hells Angels confronted each other in a planned fight that quickly turned violent. Firearms, knives, and blunt weapons were used during the confrontation, leaving 2 people dead and at least 8 others seriously injured. The conflict was not limited to the United States. During the Quebec Biker War in Canada throughout the 1990s, the Outlaws formed an alliance with the Rock Machine Motorcycle Club to resist the growing influence of the Hells Angels over street-level drug markets. The years-long conflict became one of the deadliest biker wars in history, claiming more than 150 lives. The rivalry also reached the United Kingdom. On August 12, 2007, Gerard Jerry Tobin, a 35-year-old Canadian mechanic and member of the London Hells Angels, was riding home on the M40 motorway in Warwickshire after attending the Bulldog Bash motorcycle festival. According to prosecutors, members of the South Warwickshire chapter of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club carried out a planned attack. Traveling in a green Rover 620 at around 144 kilometers per hour, Sean Creighton and several associates pulled alongside Tobin's motorcycle. 2 shots were fired from separate handguns. One bullet struck Tobin in the neck, killing him instantly, while his motorcycle continued another 200 yards before crashing. The investigation that followed revealed the attack had been carefully organized. British authorities concluded that all 7 members of the South Warwickshire Outlaws chapter had taken part in planning the killing under the leadership of Sergeant-at-Arms Sean Creighton. Investigators said the group spent 3 days watching the festival area, waiting for any Hells Angels member who entered what they considered Outlaws territory. Sean Creighton, Simon Turner, Dane Garside, Carl Garside, Dean Taylor, Ian Cameron, and Malcolm Bull were later convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. The era of Harry Taco Bowman. The Outlaws Motorcycle Club experienced its greatest expansion under Harry Joseph Taco Bowman. Born on July 17, 1949, in Marys Hill, Michigan, Bowman served as the international president of the American Outlaws Association from 1984 to 1999. During his leadership, the organization expanded into more than 30 major American cities and established over 20 international chapters, making it one of the largest outlaw motorcycle club networks in the world. Bowman maintained tight control over the organization and expected complete loyalty from both senior officers and local chapters. Investigators described his leadership as a combination of structured management and violent enforcement. According to federal prosecutors, the club became heavily involved in activities including methamphetamine and cocaine trafficking, illegal weapons distribution, extortion, firebombings, and contract killings, targeting rivals as well as members accused of breaking club rules. Federal court records also describe the harsh methods allegedly used to enforce discipline within the organization. In one incident, after Outlaws member Donald Misson violated internal rules, prosecutors said Bowman confronted him in a motel room, punched him in the face, held a knife against his ear, and ordered senior members, including Houston Murphy, to beat him. According to testimony presented in court, Misson was later thrown from a 3rd-story balcony, suffering serious injuries. Authorities also accused Bowman of approving targeted killings of rivals and suspected informants. During one meeting of regional presidents, prosecutors said Bowman authorized the murder of rival biker Raymond Chaffin. When prospect Steve Anchorage agreed to participate, Bowman allegedly told him that completing the assassination would earn him the club's SS South Twin Lightning Bolts patch. Court records further claimed Bowman often created public alibis with senior officers while other members carried out violent attacks. Bowman's leadership began to collapse after Operation Silver Spoke, a 6-year investigation led by the Drug Enforcement Administration (DEA) in Florida. In November 1996, federal prosecutors charged 10 senior Outlaws members under federal racketeering laws. Facing mandatory life sentences, National Vice President Wayne Hicks, one of Bowman's closest associates, agreed to cooperate with investigators, along with Houston Murphy. Hicks became the highest-ranking Outlaws official ever to testify against the club, and law enforcement officials compared his cooperation to that of Sammy the Bull Gravano during the federal case against the Gambino crime family. In August 1997, a federal grand jury in Tampa, Florida, unsealed a sweeping RICO indictment charging Bowman with racketeering, murder, drug trafficking, and explosives offenses. After learning that federal agents were preparing to raid his home in Grosse Pointe Farms, Michigan, Bowman fled and became a fugitive. On March 14, 1998, the FBI added him to its 10 most wanted fugitives list as fugitive number 453. During the 15 months that Harry Taco Bowman remained on the run, investigators believed he moved between the network of safe houses operated by loyal American Outlaws Association chapters and contacts connected to the Detroit Partnership organized crime family. While avoiding capture, Bowman reportedly handed day-to-day control of the organization to James "Big Frank" Wheeler from the Indianapolis chapter, allowing the club to continue operating despite his fugitive status. His time as a fugitive came to an end on June 7, 1999. Acting on an anonymous tip that was reportedly generated after a feature on the television program America's Most Wanted, FBI tactical teams and local police raided a home in Sterling Heights, Michigan. Bowman was arrested without resistance, bringing one of the FBI's most closely watched fugitive cases to a close. In April 2001, after a lengthy federal trial in Tampa that included testimony from former high-ranking Outlaws members such as Wayne Hicks, Bowman was found guilty on every count against him. The federal judge sentenced him to 2 consecutive life sentences, plus 83 additional years in prison, with no possibility of parole. Harry Taco Bowman died from cancer on March 3, 2019, at the Federal Medical Center in Butner, North Carolina, at the age of 69. His funeral, held on March 16, 2019, at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Dayton, Ohio, reflected the influence he had within the organization. More than 2,000 Outlaws members, along with representatives from England and several countries in Western Europe, attended the service. His casket was escorted by a procession of more than 1,200 motorcycles, making it one of the largest biker funeral processions associated with the club. Transnational footprint and modern law enforcement challenges. Since Bowman's era, the Outlaws Motorcycle Club has continued to operate as an international organization. According to intelligence assessments from the U.S. Department of Justice, Criminal Intelligence Service Canada, and Europol, the American Outlaws Association is regarded as a significant organized crime group. Under the leadership of International President John Tommy O. Erwin, the organization is reported to maintain 441 chapters across 43 countries, with an estimated membership of more than 5,000 full-patch members worldwide. Law enforcement agencies have linked the organization to a wide range of alleged criminal activities. These include large-scale drug trafficking, particularly involving synthetic drugs such as methamphetamine, illegal firearms distribution, extortion, money laundering, prostitution operations, and violent enforcement of territorial control. Investigators have also alleged that legitimate businesses, including motorcycle shops, tattoo studios, bars, and transportation companies, have been used to disguise and launder money generated through illegal activities. Authorities say one reason the organization has remained resilient is its long-standing relationships with other criminal groups. In the United States, investigators have reported working connections between the Outlaws and traditional Italian-American organized crime groups, including the Chicago Outfit and the Detroit Partnership. Outside the United States, the club has also been linked through alliances with major one-percenter motorcycle clubs that are not aligned with the Hells Angels, including the Bandidos Motorcycle Club and the Mongols Motorcycle Club. These relationships have often been viewed by investigators as a counterbalance to the Hells Angels' global influence. For law enforcement, investigating the American Outlaws Association remains a difficult task. Agencies have pointed to the club's use of counter-surveillance techniques, tightly organized chapter structures, strict internal discipline, and encrypted communications as major obstacles to undercover investigations. Officials have also noted that support clubs, particularly the Black Pistons Motorcycle Club, can create another layer of separation between senior Outlaws leaders and alleged criminal activity, making prosecutions more challenging. Even after decades of federal investigations and reputed prosecutions, under the racketeer-influenced corrupt organization's RICO Act, the Outlaws Motorcycle Club has continued to survive. Over more than 90 years, the organization has evolved from a small motorcycle club founded by working-class riders in suburban Illinois into an international network that law enforcement agencies continue to investigate as an organized crime enterprise. Conclusions and strategic synthesis. The history of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club provides a detailed look at how one of the world's oldest outlaw biker organizations evolved over time. What began in 1935 at Matilda's Bar in McCook, Illinois, as a local riding club eventually expanded into a regional federation before growing into an international organization with chapters across multiple continents. Much of the club's longevity has been credited to its structured leadership, recognizable symbols such as GFOD, Charlie, and the 1% patch, along with an organizational model that has adapted over the decades. During the years under Harry Taco Bowman, prosecutors argued that the organization became more centralized, expanded its influence, and strengthened its position through a combination of strict leadership and aggressive enforcement. Despite decades of RICO prosecutions, high-profile witnesses cooperating with federal authorities, and continuous pressure from law enforcement agencies around the world, the American Outlaws Association continues to maintain a significant international presence. According to investigators, the organization's continued survival has been supported by its use of affiliated support clubs like the Black Pistons, strategic relationships with established organized crime groups, and strict internal security measures. More than 9 decades after its founding, the Outlaws Motorcycle Club remains one of the most enduring and closely watched outlaw motorcycle organizations in the world. Chapter 5. Pagans, MC. After World War II, organized crime in America began to change. The old mafia families still controlled politics, businesses, and powerful connections in many cities, but another kind of criminal network was quietly taking shape. This new world belonged to outlaw motorcycle clubs, groups that could move quickly across state lines and build influence far beyond a single city. Among the 4 motorcycle clubs that federal law enforcement later labeled the Big Four, the Hells Angels, the Outlaws, the Bandidos, and the Pagans, the Pagans Motorcycle Club carved out a very different path. Instead of expanding across the western and central United States, before spreading overseas, the Pagans focused almost entirely on the East Coast. They built a powerful territorial network that stretched along the eastern seaboard, defending it with violence whenever necessary. The club started in 1959 as a small riding group in Prince George's County, Maryland. At that time, there was little to suggest it would become one of America's most feared outlaw motorcycle organizations. Over the next 6 decades, however, the Pagans transformed into a highly organized criminal syndicate. Investigators have linked the club to large-scale drug manufacturing, racketeering, close relationships with traditional mafia families, and an aggressive campaign to control territory throughout the eastern United States. Subcultural origins and the birth of the 1%er identity. The Pagans Motorcycle Club was born during the rise of America's post-war motorcycle culture. In 1959, Lou Dobkin founded the club in Prince George's County, Maryland, with only 13 riders. During those early years, the Pagans looked more like a group of motorcycle enthusiasts than an outlaw organization. Members rode a mix of American Harley-Davidsons and British-built Triumph motorcycles, spending weekends on road trips, gathering at local hot rod events, and enjoying the growing biker lifestyle. Their appearance also reflected those humble beginnings. Instead of wearing the famous three-piece leather patches associated with outlaw clubs today, the original members wore blue denim jackets decorated with hand-embroidered club insignia. The club's transformation into an outlaw organization happened gradually, driven by both media attention and the members' own defiant attitude. By 1965, as the Pagans expanded across Maryland, they became increasingly involved in public disturbances, bar fights, and repeated traffic violations. After a widely publicized incident at a motorcycle race in Maryland, local newspapers described them as part of the 1% of motorcyclists who caused problems. Instead of trying to repair their image, the Pagans embraced the label. They created and proudly wore a diamond-shaped patch displaying 1%. What began as a criticism from the press quickly became a badge of honor. That simple patch soon spread throughout the outlaw biker world, becoming one of the most recognizable symbols in motorcycle club history. It marked the line between riders who followed the law and those who openly rejected it. By the late 1960s, the Pagans began reshaping the club from the inside. Foreign-made motorcycles were phased out, and members were required to ride American Harley-Davidsons. At the same time, the club replaced its informal leadership with a strict chain of command. Those changes helped lay the foundation for a much more organized operation, one that would later be associated with racketeering, drug trafficking, and violent battles over territory. Organizational governance, structure, and club symbols. Behind its outlaw image, the Pagans Motorcycle Club operates through a surprisingly organized structure that resembles a corporation. At the top sits the club's highest governing body, known historically as the Mother Club. Unlike the Hells Angels, which maintain a permanent headquarters in Oakland, or the Outlaws, whose leadership has long been associated with Chicago, the Pagans do not operate from one fixed national headquarters. Instead, the Mother Club functions as a mobile executive board, based primarily in the northeastern United States. It is made up of 13 senior members who oversee the organization as a whole. This group is responsible for setting national policies, collecting money from chapters, approving expansion into new territories, and enforcing discipline throughout the club. Below the Mother Club are local chapters that all follow the same leadership model. Each chapter is run by a president, a vice president, and a sergeant-at-arms. Members are expected to follow written bylaws, pay mandatory monthly dues, and obey the decisions made by club leadership without question. The Pagans also introduced an unusual financial policy during the 1960s. Their constitution stated that the national president would receive a salary equal to that of the President of the United States, $100,000 per year at the time. Club officials reportedly described the payment as a show of class, highlighting how seriously they viewed the organization's leadership. The club's identity is also reflected through its distinctive patches. Members wear denim vests, commonly called cuts or cutoffs, displaying their club colors on both the front and back. The center patch features Surt, the fire giant from Norse mythology, sitting on a blazing sun while holding a flaming sword. The artwork was adapted from an illustration created by comic artist Jack Kirby in issue number 97 of Marvel Comics' Journey into Mystery, published in October 1963. In Norse mythology, Surtra represents destruction, fire, and the end of the world, imagery that matched the club's rebellious identity and rejection of mainstream society. Around the emblem appears the word Pagans, in bold red, white, and blue lettering. One of the most recognizable features of the Pagans' colors is their approach to territorial patches. Most outlaw motorcycle clubs wear a traditional three-piece patch that includes the club name, a center logo, and a bottom rocker showing the city or state where the member belongs, such as New York or Pennsylvania. For many years, the Pagans chose a different approach. Rather than wearing city or state rockers, members displayed a single East Coast rocker. That decision was more than a design choice. It was a declaration of power. By wearing East Coast, the Pagans claimed authority over the entire eastern coastline of the United States, sending a clear message to rival motorcycle clubs that operating anywhere in that region required the approval of the mother club. Expansion, patchovers, and criminal partnerships. The Pagans Motorcycle Club experienced its biggest period of growth during the late 1960s and throughout the 1970s under the leadership of National President John Satan Maron. Maron played a major role in reshaping the club. Instead of focusing on local fights and small-scale rivalries, he pushed the Pagans toward organized racketeering and expansion across multiple states. Before joining the Pagans, Maron served as president of the Sons of Satan Motorcycle Club in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. After a series of territorial disputes between the two clubs, Maron reached a peace agreement with Pagans president Fred Dutch Burhans. That agreement introduced a strategy that would become known as a patchover. Instead of fighting smaller motorcycle clubs, the Pagans axed patches. They were exposed, they were fighting most patches for weeks. They couldn't know that they can't meet anything to the problems as patches. Don't believe that. Where should they be? And where should we stand and write more weeks and states concealed by nature, major nature? Under Maron's leadership, the Sons of Satan remained active as a permanent support, or puppet, club, while Maron himself became the national president of the Pagans. The strategy proved highly successful. By the early 1970s, the club had expanded to an estimated 5,000 members, spread throughout the Mid-Atlantic and the northeastern United States. As the organization grew larger, its main source of income shifted toward illegal drug trafficking. By the middle of the 1970s, investigators believed the Pagans controlled both the production and regional wholesale distribution of methamphetamine, commonly known as meth, along with phencyclidine, or PCP, throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. Rather than depending entirely on foreign drug suppliers, the Pagans built their own secret drug laboratories in rural parts of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and New Jersey. The club relied on experienced drug cooks and trusted logistics specialists to manufacture high-quality methamphetamine and transport it through an organized supply network that reached cities and suburban communities across the East Coast. This domestic drug operation helped the Pagans build profitable relationships with traditional organized crime families, especially La Cosa Nostra. In cities like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and New York, the club established working partnerships with well-established mafia organizations. The relationship in Philadelphia did not begin peacefully. Early disputes over drug territory led to violent confrontations, including an attempted assassination carried out by a pagan member against Philadelphia mob figure Harry Hunchback Riccobain. Despite that violence, both sides eventually realized cooperation was more profitable than conflict. The Philadelphia mob supplied money, chemical ingredients, and protection inside the city, while the Pagans manufactured methamphetamine, handled transportation across state lines, and provided armed enforcement for loan sharking and illegal gambling operations. That partnership created a criminal business model that made the Pagans one of the most financially secure and heavily armed outlaw motorcycle organizations in North America. More with rival motorcycle clubs, the Pagans' claim over the entire East Coast eventually brought them into direct conflict with other outlaw motorcycle clubs trying to establish chapters in the same territory. Their biggest rival became the California-based Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, whose expansion eastward sparked years of violent confrontations throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. The rivalry led to planned attacks, drive-by shootings, and large public fights as both clubs battled for control. One of the most notorious incidents took place on February 23, 2002, at the Vanderbilt Hotel in Plainview, Long Island. The Hells Angels were holding their annual Hellraiser Ball, a motorcycle and tattoo convention attended by around 700 people, including families and other civilians. The Pagans viewed the event as a direct challenge to their claim over the East Coast. In response, the Mother Club ordered members from chapters in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware to assemble and launch an attack on the hotel. More than 70 Pagans arrived in a convoy of 10 vans, armed with firearms, knives, baseball bats, axe handles, and wearing tactical body armor. They stormed the entrance to the exhibition hall, triggering a violent confrontation. The situation escalated quickly when Hells Angels members pulled out firearms, leading to a gunfight inside the crowded hotel. By the time the violence ended, 5 Pagans had been shot, another 5 had been stabbed, and 50-year-old Robert Rutherford, a senior member of the Pagans, had been killed. Police from Nassau County quickly secured the hotel, arrested dozens of bikers, and recovered loaded Uzi submachine guns, machetes, and numerous improvised weapons from the scene. Federal prosecutors later used the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, commonly known as RICO, to pursue the case. The investigation ultimately resulted in racketeering conspiracy convictions against 73 members of the Pagans Motorcycle Club. Although the Plainview case dealt a major blow to the organization, the violence between rival clubs did not end. In September 2010, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, better known as the ATF, completed a 21-month undercover investigation that successfully placed federal agents inside the Pagans' Long Island chapter. Coordinated raids carried out before sunrise across New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Massachusetts led to the arrest of 19 senior Pagans members. According to the federal indictment, investigators discovered that the club had prepared hit lists targeting Hells Angels members. The alleged plan involved using firearms as well as improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, to carry out the attacks. During the operation, federal agents seized 34 firearms along with a bomb, stopping the alleged plot before it could be carried out. More recent investigations show that defending territory remains a core part of the Pagans' strategy. In October 2020, after a Pagan officer was assaulted at a bar in Verona, New Jersey, club leaders Larry Ortiz, known as Savage, and Junius Aquino, known as J.O., allegedly carried out a rolling ambush on the New Jersey Turnpike. During the high-speed chase, multiple rounds were fired into the vehicle of a rival Hells Angels associate, continuing a decades-long pattern of violent territorial conflict between the two outlaw motorcycle clubs. Expansion into the Midwest and ongoing federal crackdowns. As the Pagans continued expanding beyond their traditional East Coast territory, they began pushing into parts of the Midwest. That move quickly brought them into conflict with other established outlaw motorcycle clubs, particularly in Missouri and Kansas, where competition over territory became increasingly violent. In August 2024, a federal grand jury in the Western District of Missouri indicted 18 members of the Pagans Motorcycle Club. According to prosecutors, the group was involved in a series of armed assaults, extortion schemes, and drive-by shootings aimed at forcing rival clubs out of areas the Pagans claimed as their own. Those rivals included the Hells Angels, the Outlaws, the Bandidos, and the Sons of Silence. Federal investigations, court battles, and leadership survival. For decades, law enforcement agencies have tried to weaken the Pagans by targeting the club's leadership. Federal investigators have relied on racketeering indictments, court-approved wiretaps, and long-term undercover operations in an effort to dismantle the organization from the top down. Despite those efforts, the Pagans have repeatedly shown an ability to survive, Their structured chain of command has allowed new leaders to step into key positions whenever senior members were arrested or sent to prison. One of the clearest examples of that resilience is Dennis "Rooster" Katona. Before becoming the club's national president in the late 2200, Katona served as the national sergeant-at-arms. He was later convicted for helping coordinate the violent 2002 attack at the Vanderbilt Hotel in Plainview, New York. After completing his federal prison sentence, Katona returned to the organization and eventually rose to the highest leadership position. From his home in Hempfield Township, Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, investigators alleged that he managed multi-state drug trafficking operations. In June 2011, a Pennsylvania State Police SWAT team raided Katona's residence. During the search, officers seized nearly 200 ounces of high-purity cocaine and methamphetamine with an estimated value of more than $20,000. They also recovered digital scales and records that investigators believed documented drug transactions. Katona's conviction eventually led to an important legal challenge involving Pennsylvania's wiretapping laws. His attorneys argued that investigators violated his constitutional right to privacy by using a confidential informant who secretly recorded conversations inside his home without obtaining the proper judicial warrant. The case, Commonwealth v. X. Katona, reached the Pennsylvania Supreme Court in October 2020. After reviewing the evidence, the court ruled in favor of the Commonwealth, deciding that recordings made with the consent of one participating party under Pennsylvania's Wiretapping and Electronic Surveillance Control Act met constitutional requirements. As a result, Katona's drug conviction and sentence remained in place. Katona also faced threats from outside the courtroom. In May 2021, a man named Victor Stebbin allegedly carried out a shooting attack on Katona's home in Westmoreland County. Investigators said Stebbin fired multiple rounds into the residence in what they described as an assassination attempt. He was later arrested and charged with a double homicide. According to police, Stebbin openly admitted that his objective had been death rows. Getting Rooster. Even after years of arrests, prosecutions, and major federal investigations, the Pagans Motorcycle Club continues to operate across much of the United States. Under its current national leadership, including President Cletus Ayers, the organization is estimated to have around 5,000 members spread across more than 100 chapters in over 24 states and Puerto Rico. By relying on support clubs, absorbing smaller motorcycle organizations through strategic patchovers, and expanding into parts of the Midwest and the West Coast, the Pagans have managed to preserve their place within America's outlaw biker world. Conclusion: the history of the Pagans Motorcycle Club shows how a small riding club gradually transformed into one of the most organized outlaw motorcycle groups in the United States. What began in 1959 as a non-violent motorcycle club changed dramatically over the following decades. Media attention in 1965 helped shape the club's embrace of the one-percenter identity, a symbol that would later become recognized throughout the outlaw biker culture across North America. The club's ability to survive is closely tied to its organizational structure. By combining a disciplined leadership system with street-level enforcement, the Pagans have remained active despite decades of federal investigations and repeated efforts to dismantle the organization. Their mobile mother club has also played an important role. Because it does not operate from one permanent national headquarters, law enforcement has found it more difficult to disrupt the club's leadership through a single coordinated raid. At the same time, the club's long-standing use of the East Coast rocker has reinforced a shared identity among chapters spread across multiple states. Another key factor behind the Pagans' growth was their early involvement in methamphetamine production. Operating their own drug laboratories created a steady source of income, and helped establish profitable relationships with La Cosa Nostra crime families. Those partnerships provided financial stability during periods when the club faced intense federal pressure. Today, as the Pagans continue expanding into regions traditionally controlled by rival one-percenter motorcycle clubs, their history suggests that territorial disputes will likely remain a defining part of the organization's strategy. From a small group of riders on the roads of Maryland to one of the most recognizable outlaw motorcycle clubs in America, the Pagans Motorcycle Club has evolved into an organization that continues to play a significant role in the landscape of modern organized crime.